What is going on, Wolfpack Nation? We are live once again, which is expected, but not normal. Let's put it that way. Right? I mean, it's not typical on a Wednesday night. We're usually going live with another edition of the Tuffy Talk live show. But the reason why is because for those who don't know, the red light is on. The red light is on, baby. So, yeah, y'all like the new Christmas gift,
like
man?
The props.
Christmas gift.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
All right, hold on.
I know, Greg. Where's yours at, bro?
Yeah, you gotta match Greg.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't prepared though ahead of time, so yeah, get out of here. Anyway, y'all. So with that being said, as we said earlier, this is an emergency live show as we are talking about the commitment of Grayson McCall, man, Coastal Carolina quarterback and over 10,000 yard passer, decided to run with the pack, and we have on with us two friends of the podcast that we've had on multiple times. And so if you've been a follower of Tuffy Talk for a while, if you're a follower of NC State Sports, if you're a follower of Inside Pack Sports, like, you know these two guys very, very, very well. Our friends here, Ryan Williams and Philip Danfer, appreciate you both joining us as always, man, to kind of, again, just talk this through, man. I mean, I know a lot of people right now are really excited about this. So excited to kind of talk it through a little bit. And I know, Philip, I'll kind of talk to you first. I know that you posted on your Twitter today one clip, I think it was from the UCLA game for Grayson McCall from this past year, and so it seems like the highlight, the film watch has already begun with Grayson McCall. Would that be the case?
Oh yeah. It actually began a little while ago. I probably watched quite a few of the portal quarterbacks trying to figure out, right, who is going to be a fit for NC State, and that's one of the reasons I am really excited about this acquisition. Is, for me, I've said this on a couple platforms now, I didn't view the quarterback market as we stand now as very deep for the portal. And we know NC State has to get somebody. So when you start measuring ability, scheme fit, and attainability, I really came down to just a handful of guys. And frankly, Grayson McCall was one of those two. And for me, it was like, I really feel like we need to land one of these guys, or we get into a potentially precarious situation. Like we need that next wave. And so to me, to secure a high level quarterback this early in the portal period is massive for NC State. Right now you go and you use him as that recruiting piece to bring on, because we're going to bring on more receivers, right? We're going to bring more guys on. We're going to bring on more running backs. We have spots to fill. And now you have that leverage to say, look at this guy, 10,000 passing yards, right? 3 times Sun Belt Player of the Year. This is a guy with true accolades that you can really build upon.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I mean, I love today, like, his, I mean, the Zoom call, like, all of his answers were, I mean, I loved it, man. Like, he's just a guy that seems experienced. He's a guy that seems mature. He's a guy that seems like a leader. I mean, for him to, be number 10 his whole career and get offered an opportunity to be number 10, but, recognize that he's trying to buy, the appreciation of his teammates right now, and so for him to go ahead and and say, no, Casey, that's going to be your number, man. You've written your legacy already in number 10 NC State. And if things keep on going, that number 10, could hang up in the rafters one day if it continues on this trajectory. So, Greg, any initial thoughts, man, on Grayson McCall?
Yeah, I just thought that it, like Philip said, it just seemed like this was going to be the right fit. I don't pretend to be as well versed in play reading, but like Philip, but I watched a bunch of highlights today, and everything I saw just looked good. I did 21 and 22, and dude was just hitting dudes in stride. Like you said, 10,000 passing yards. This is a guy that could have transferred after last season, but came back and played another year at Coastal. So it just kind of speaks to his character. You've already briefly mentioned that. I think he's just going to be some guy that's going to come into the locker room and just command. I wouldn't say demand, but command respect.
Yeah, I agree with that. Ryan, anything to add to that?
Yeah, to me, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me about Grayson was him saying he was a winner. He was like, dude, I'm a winner. I'm trying to bring that with me. And to me, that fits kind of the mindset that surrounds the team. I feel like he kind of fits the mold. And, watching his tape, sometimes when you're playing in the Sun Belt, he could be playing lesser conference or, lesser opponents. But when you watch Grayson, you're like, okay, this dude has the intangibles. He has the mechanics that can make him be good at the next level. And I think what's playing to him a lot, and I think what helped him choose State, was you're going to have a lot of weapons on offense, right? So you're going to have more talent than you most likely had at Coastal Carolina that he's going to be working with, right? So, and with Anai, I feel like it's a perfect fit, like Philip said. He's kind of like the Brennan Armstrong mold. I feel like he's probably a more accurate passer.
Careful, Ryan. Careful.
Well, in terms of being a big physical,
no, I know, brother. I know.
He won't run as effective as Armstrong will, but at least he's a bigger dude that can run the ball and gives you that threat. So it's going to still keep that element of your offense. So I mean, I'm excited about it.
You know, I'll say piggybacking on Ryan there, I guess my initial early thoughts on the offense is this year we had to lean on Brennan Armstrong to be more of a creator than we probably anticipated, coming into the year. I think we'll be able to fall back. If we look at who NC State has already acquired, whether it's portal or recruiting, guy like Jonathan Paylor, who is out there, who is potentially rumored. I mean, listen, we've all heard the rumors. NC State has a chance to put together a very potent offense. And now it becomes where I think Grayson McCall becomes more of a distributor, which really fits the way I think he plays best versus forcing him to be that creator. I think things will come together more seamlessly. At least that's my initial thought. There's a long way to go between now and Western Carolina, right? But I just think there will be a little bit of a different role, and it's going to be predicated a lot on that skill position we'll be able to potentially surround him with.
Yeah. And I think now, like, Anai knows what he has in KC. So, I mean, to be honest, 90% of freshmen that come in are not going to do what KC did. And that's why we didn't see much of him at the beginning of the year because, he had, when he was banged up against Notre Dame, the drop turned into a pick. So at that point, you're like, okay, he's just a guy. But then Anai found out how to use him, and then he turned into, a first-team all-freshman guy. So now you're going into year 2. You still have KC. You're going to have more of an outside threat with Collins and Grimes and, anyone else that you potentially going to pick up. And it's really going to spread the field. And it's going to open it up more for Grayson inside the middle. Whereas, teams before were just condensing the field inside the hashes because they didn't trust our outside receivers. And that's why we got shots to Collins on the outside against UNC. But now you're going to have those outside threats. So it's kind of going to open the field up a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I kind of wanted to throw out there too is I think Grayson McCall is a quarterback that elevates his talent around him, not where the wide receivers make the quarterback look better.
Yeah.
Right. So I think to everyone's point, we're going to be slinging it all through the yard next year. And I was looking at one guy. He had was his tight end in 21. He had like 10 touchdowns. I mean, he finds people. And, speaking about Philip and, he was saying there were some other guys out there. And I think you're going to start seeing more people in the route trees, if you will. I think you're going to start utilizing the tight end a lot more. I think you're going to probably see a lot more catches out of the backfield with the running backs. I think we're going to have a lot of options next year. I think that's what gets people excited the most.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments too, y'all. What are you the most excited about when it comes to Grayson McCall in 2024? But one question that Andy asked here, Philip, do you still have do you have your charts comparing BA and Grayson stats?
Oh, yes. I think I put them out on Twitter earlier.
You
right?
have. So, I mean, what just to kind of give a summary for those maybe who are watching that haven't seen it or who are listening who haven't seen it, what is like at least when I was looking at it, it looked pretty odd. It looked pretty similar for the most part. I mean, like it statistically.
Yeah, and this is just a statistical view, right? We'll do some film room. I know me and my guy Alex G, right? I guarantee we'll do a big film room in the next couple of days. Get you a recliner and be ready. It'll be a long one. I'll tell you that right now. But statistically,
I got my popcorn ready.
There you go. 2023, they were very similar. But it's also one of the things we want to look at is 2023 was easily Grayson McCall's worst year from a statistical perspective. They changed offenses. It was different. He got into now an offense that we're very familiar with, obviously in Raleigh, right? It became into a pick-a-side kind of quick game. I've always thought West Coast principles of the Tim Beck offense, which was very different than what he had prior. And I think you saw some growing pains early on, but then, I threw that one clip out against UCLA as I was kind of scrolling through that today, and it's like, I mean, he still made some throws that you kind of take you sit back and you're like, that's impressive. And so, I think when you look at the overall numbers, a couple of things jump out. One is the pure accuracy that Grayson McCall has shown. And even in his worst year this year, he still had a 67% completion percentage, right? That's still an incredibly high rate. I think one of the things you also want to look at, a career interception rate of 1.4%. That's low, guys. That's incredible. 14 interceptions in his entire career, over 1,000 passes. And he also, frankly, has a penchant for the big play. 10%, it was 10 point something, you guys might have it in front of you, of his throws in his career have gone for 25 or more yards. He has a penchant for finding the right guy that's open and giving them. One of the things I talked about today, we recorded for IPS a take on him. His ability to not just throw accurately, but to throw on time and in a good location to allow that run after catch. That pops off the film over and over and over again, and that aids in those big plays, right? When a guy is running a comeback route, it's not – you hit him in the chest, that's great. You can call that an accurate throw. But let's say you hit him on the inside shoulder because the cornerback has outside leverage, and now you're giving him the ability to catch and spin away, and now you're building on those – you remember Amato talking about all those hidden yards back in the day, right? That's just kind of those hidden yards a quarterback can help acquire. And I think there's a lot of high-end traits that you see out of McCall's film. And so statistically, I guess the other thing we'll bring up is running real quick. He is not going to be the runner that Brennan Armstrong was. Like, I don't think people should expect that. He came from Chadwell, excuse me. They were a pistol-based option offense, right? That was one of the primary core principles. He had to be a threat. He is a threat with his legs, but he is not a guy that has top-end speed, right? So don't expect, he's just going to outrun everybody to the end zone. That's not really his game. And I don't think he's going to bowl people over like we've seen some instances of Brennan Armstrong this year. I think he's a guy who is good at making the first-level defender miss, and he's going to consistently get you those 5 to 10 yards, somewhere in that range, and he's going to keep the change, right? He's going to keep you, we always like to talk about success rate. Those are those plays that keep success rate high. They keep the ball on schedule. And I think that's where he's going to really shine from a run game perspective for NC State. And frankly, I'm going to be fascinated. We did see some times this year where Anai tried to bring in some option principles. It wasn't a lot, but there was a there. This is a guy who could actually make it come to life where now you get into those pistol looks, and he is a threat, and he's done it well throughout his career.
Agreed. Absolutely. So got to take a pause here real quick as sitting here in the backstage, we have a surprise guest here as now this is becoming a Inside Pack Sports live show here with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Steve Williams. What up, Steve?
Hey, what's going on, fella? Hey, look, a handsome group of guys, but I saw your guest list is kind of lacking, so I thought I might drop
There
out.
you go. We need him.
Thanks for bumping us up.
Hey, listen, Steve. Ryan's got a circle light now, so like his face is lit up and perfectly. So I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. Like this is the best it's ever looked.
Yeah. Hey, so my guy Reed wants to join in. Like, how do I get him in here?
Ooh,
we'll send him a link.
Yeah, we can send him a link, man. I mean,
heck, let's just get the whole Savage Wolves in here.
Yeah.
Just get Tom, let's go. Like, we can just get everybody going.
Yeah. Here, Steve.
Here, I'll get him to text me his email, and I'll forward him the link.
Okay. I was gonna say, so you got it, Ryan? You got it handled?
Yeah, I'll get him to text me his email.
All right. Cool,
hey, Philip,
cool.
you were talking while we do that. Like, Grayson is a guy that's run for over 1,000 yards in his career. That's about 250 a year. He has broken off a 62-yarder. I don't know who he was playing against, but that must have been an all-out blitz to get a 62-yarder.
Yeah.
But I agree with what you were saying there. I think he's going to be a guy that, look, if you need a couple of yards, he can get that for you. But I don't think he's going to be like Brennan Armstrong, where it's 3rd and 10 and he gets 12 yards.
I agree with that. I don't think that's really the strength of his game, right? To me, when you start evaluating quarterbacks, we always kind of start with three basic principles, especially in the passing game. Does he know where to go with the ball? Is he on time, and is he accurate? And that's really his strength right there, which is the core principle. We can get to the secondary traits after it, where we talk about mobility, scrambling, arm strength, arm angles, all that kind of stuff. But to me, his strength is the core principles of, when I evaluate quarterbacks, where we start with. So I think, he probably won't hit that, but I think he's going to hit the guy on time. I think he's going to be able to read the defense properly. And one of the things I'm most fascinated with, and it kind of caught my eye today, actually, I was watching some film. I tell you, I should have been working more. I should have been working more than I did today. I watched a lot of film today.
It's the holiday season.
Holiday.
Yeah.
I actually think the NC State offense, in a way, will be simpler than what they asked them to do at Coastal. Because when you really look at that offense at Coastal, I mean, there were some plays where I was watching the BYU game from 2020. I don't know if you guys remember that game. It's a big game.
Yeah.
Kind of
they took it on like 5-day notice. Yeah.
But when you look at what they asked him to do, right, they start in a pistol alignment, and he's, play action faking, or he's RPOing, then he's flipping his hips and he's throwing a 10-yard out. And in my head, I'm just like, I don't think we're going to ask him to do that. I think this is really going to be a situation where he's going to be able to just simply read the defense a little bit more, and then just kind of be Grayson McCall and throw the ball well. And because I think at times they almost overly stressed him when we look at that game. He didn't have actually a great statistical contest there. He had under 100 yards. Kind of felt like they asked him to do so much. I don't think in NC State they're going to ask him to do that. I think he's going to have more weapons. I think he's going to have more flexibility to just get the ball out to a KC or a Paler or Grimes or all these guys. I think he's just going to have a greater weapon set around him. So, man, I'm excited about it, boys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real quick, I just had a question. Like, I've read up on some of his intangibles, and they say he's got really good footwork. Have you kind of done anything, looking at that? I mean, that's really not someone that an average fan looks at, but just kind of speak to what that can do for us moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, so the footwork. So me and Alex, we text all day. It feels like, and that's one of the first things we both said. If you watch, especially the pistol-based offense, because the running back starts behind him, right? You have to look how he has to get off the midline, right? And you look at his feet, how they force him. I just mentioned it there, how he would fake the midline, and now he's throwing a deep out to the opposite side. If you look at his movement in the pocket, he has a very innate feel for those outside rushers, and he steps up in the pocket. He when he scrambles, he does look to throw more than run. I will say that, and I think that's a little bit different than Armstrong at times. And so the feet are impressive, because even when he's on the run, you'll see him kind of get back to a strong base to be able to throw the ball. And the feet tell a lot. I mean, a lot of quarterbacks get screwed up because their feet aren't there. And now you're launching from a very poor base, right? And now you don't have everything on it. And the ball typically sails whenever you don't have good feet. And I think he's much better at that than we see out of a lot of quarterbacks. And that's one of the things that helps keep that interception rate to, what we said, 1.4% for his career. Yeah. That's an insanely low rate. And I think that's one of the things that really helps.
He basically threw as many interceptions this year as he had the previous 4 or 3, excuse me.
Yeah. And when you look at him, I know I went through the Georgia Southern game the other day. He threw 4 interceptions. 2 of them were on him. 2 of them were not his fault at all. And that's just the nature of quarterback play, right? Sometimes you don't get the breaks. The last one, 14 seconds in the game, he throws a check down to the running back, and he just right off his hands to a linebacker. I mean, I'm not putting that on the quarterback at all, right? So that's just how it goes.
Yeah. So I do want to ask you, Steve, is I know that, at least, fans like myself, still 29 years old, get called down or so often be like, man, like, you ain't been around long enough to know, like, you don't know, like, what do you know? And all that. And so I do want to ask, like, has there ever been a time where NC State football has been more anticipated, like that there's ever been as much juice and excitement around the program like it is right now? Like, I mean, coming off 9-3, 3rd place by yourself in the ACC, and now you're getting like all these recruits and all these talks about recruits, and then you got Tom Lavolsi basically saying we have guys that are going to commit in the next couple of days, like right there on social media. So, like, I mean, everything I've heard is just good, excited right now.
Yeah, I agree, and it's been a while coming, right? Like, We've built some consistency. We're getting used to 8 or 9 wins. We always feel like we're a player away, 2 players away. And that's something that I kind of was harping on with NIL, is the fact that those two or three pieces that you're missing are attainable now through NIL. So guys that maybe you wouldn't have had a chance with before, now you can plug those gaps. And then when you look at NC State's schedule right now, I mean, dude, it's a lot of really exciting stuff going on right now. And I think by the time we get to this point next week, you're excited now. I think it's going to be even better. Like, I think it's going to take it up a whole nother notch. I think a lot of, and to be honest, I mean, we've already filled a lot of holes, right? Getting McCall today was massive. And I think that's going to be the springboard over the next few days to plug some additional gaps with really high-end guys. And so when we come out the other side to next week, dude, I tell you, we're going to have some weapons, man. And, it may definitely be a situation. Last couple of years, we've leaned on our defense to win, 24 to 17 games. My hope is that with all of this coming together, we're going to be in a position to start outscoring some folks, and we're not going to need to hold a team to 2 touchdowns to win. Obviously there's a lot to come together. There's a lot of pieces that need to come together, but just the way the stars are lining up, man, there's going to be some skilled guys on offense to really get excited about.
Yeah. If I had to make an early comparison, could you maybe compare this team to what Louisville was this year?
Perfect. That is a perfect example. And they went out and, when we talk about NIL, we kind of talk about, okay, where does State fall in the conference in regards to NIL? And I'll tell you guys, and I know you guys are familiar with it as much as anyone. State is in a really good place with NIL relative to most teams. But the 2 teams that really stand out with NIL are Louisville and Florida State. And those 2 teams went out and basically built teams that were contenders almost from day one. I mean, they're in the ACC championship game. So I think Louisville's a great example of, if it all comes together, what you can accomplish. And, and I don't want to, tease that the schedule is easy. I mean, we're smart enough to know the ACC schedule is never going to be easy. Right. But it seems to set up favorably for State that if these pieces come together, man, it could be a really nice year next year.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can, not necessarily say it, but I mean, I'll say, I mean, it's definitely, in terms of, recent schedules, this is definitely not one that stands out to me, like in terms of, watch out. Now I know that some of that might kind of get brought back depending on where these games get placed. Like, for example, I mean, if you're playing at Georgia Tech and then playing at Clemson the week after, okay, well, that's tough for sure. And then, like, where does that Cal game get put in? Like, I would hope and assume that they wouldn't have Cal and then another road game right after that, but
maybe get a bye.
Maybe I would hope. I mean, like, are there rules in place that anybody knows, or I mean, like, could they possibly send an ACC team to Stanford or Cal, and then they have to go play Syracuse the next week up in Northeast? Like, that'd be a heck of a schedule if somebody had to do that.
Yeah, I would think they would try to avoid it. But now with
but do they have common sense? Do they have the common sense not to do that?
I don't know. I mean, it may just end up being a numbers thing with more teams. I mean, you just kind of have to play the games when you can play them.
I was about to say, I think somebody's eventually just going to get the raw end of that one.
Yeah,
that's just how it's going to happen. You just hope it's not.
It's usually NC State, right?
Facts.
Yeah, it's usually us.
NC State stuff, right, Steve? NC State stuff.
But that's the kind of the things we're talking about, right? Like when we talk about making a run to a championship, you need like 3 factors. You need a favorable schedule, you need to have good health, and you need a little good luck, right? I mean, let's be real. You need a bounce to go your way every now and then.
Yeah, absolutely. But Alan in here saying, haven't been this excited about the Pack offense since Phillip Rivers and T.A. McClendon. And Paul saying, I love the optimism surrounding the improvement over the later part of the season and recent portal pickups. And that's the thing, is that, like, the way the season worked, where it's not like we got to 9-3 by having like a bunch of up and downs. Like, we were like puttering And then once the bye week came, then we just skyrocketed, and I think that's really has fed into this momentum that we're seeing here in the postseason. I mean, I think that keeping KC was the first thing, and that was a huge move.
Yeah.
Was the news of keeping KC, and on top of it, another piece of news I don't think people are honestly talking about it enough is Gibson as of right now. I mean, I would assume that if it hasn't happened by now, it's not going to, but not to say it couldn't. But I mean, he's still the defensive coordinator at NC State as of right now. I mean, that's a huge move because I mean, even though you're losing Peyton Wilson, and there's some questions of, okay, who's going to step up now on the defense side? You got Tony Gibson. You're like, I'm not losing one bit of sleep saying, okay, I mean, like, it's definitely sucks losing a guy like Peyton Wilson, who in my opinion is one in the conversation, Greg, in the conversation.
Hey, every day you're convincing me more and more.
As one of the greatest defensive players to ever play at NC State. But at the end of the day, as long as you got Tony Gibson at the helm, you're feeling just fine. I'm not losing one sleep over what's going to happen on defense in next year.
I've never been so happy to see West Virginia go 8-4.
That's a great comment, Michael. That's a great comment.
I think it's so funny to me because I think with all this portal news and all this excitement, I think State fans forget, like, we still have a bowl game.
I know,
right?
We have a great bowl game.
You're still going for 10 wins. I mean, Kansas State lost their quarterback, lost their offensive coordinator, lost their best weapon and their tight end.
Well, they lost their cornerback too.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're still going for 10 wins. I mean, there's a lot going on.
And nobody's even thinking about it right now.
It's crazy.
People are just like, who's the next commit? When is Tom dropping another tweet? It's like the reality is we still have another game to play.
Yeah, a big game. We got an edible Pop-Tart to go eat.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that the great thing to your point, Ryan, is like we don't have that in between bowl lull now, right? We have stuff to feed our fandom for the next couple of weeks, and then you're off a month and you're right back at it with spring practice kicking in. I know we've been talking a lot about the offense, and we've had you can almost say a major overhaul on the offensive side of the ball. What are we looking at as far as like maybe potentially plugging any holes on the defensive side? Because we think there may be a few coming. After the bowl game potentially. Is there something that you think that we may need to be looking at portal wise to kind of shore up something or just add some depth pieces?
Greg, are you talking to me?
Anyone that wants to take it. Yeah, I'm just
go for it
out there. Yeah.
I'll let him say it.
I would jump in there. Davin Vann obviously is probably the number one priority right now. If I had to guess, I think he'll be back. You pair him up with Cleveland. I think State most likely will try to go in the portal and find someone. They really like the James Madison defensive lineman.
Yeah.
And I haven't checked today, but as of yesterday, we thought he was coming on an official visit this weekend. And I heard late last night that I think he may stick with Indiana. He may follow Cignetti to Indiana. So he may not be an option this week. It's not 100%, but I think that's the way it's going to go. There's some other portal.
There was a kid from Army, right? That was at Army at one point.
Yes. And they're going to look at some JUCO guys as well. I don't know right now that there's a portal D lineman that they're really focused in on. There was some early interest in Aeneas Peebles over at Duke. I don't think it went anywhere. I think there's a couple other guys probably that haven't really popped up yet that State may take a look at. But I think at the end of the day, they probably need to shore up that nose position. Then, you got Potter, you got Travali Price, you got Red Hibbler back for another season. So I think defensive, along the defensive line, you're going to be fine. At linebacker, my guess is that probably Sean Brown's going to get moved down to Peyton's spot. So you'll have Caden, Devon Betty, and then Sean Brown as your linebackers. So that will probably place a lot of priority on the safety position. Mm-hmm. And I've got a list written down. I haven't had a chance to put it all together yet. I hope I'll be able to run it tomorrow on Inside Pack Sports. But it just glancing at it, it appears that it's really heavy on defensive backs. Kids coming this weekend. A kid from Brandon Johnson out of Duke, he would be a guy that I'd be keeping an eye on. Really productive kid for Duke. I think he'd be a fit for State. So I haven't heard yet that he's visiting this weekend. I know I think he just went in the portal, so he could be a guy to keep an eye on. So make a long story short, I think we're pretty good. D tackle, got a JUCO linebacker coming in this weekend. And I think State's really focused on linebackers that can come in and help them next year, which was why that Elijah Groves was such a big deal for him, because they think Elijah is that guy. And then the JUCO kid coming this weekend, I think there's a really good shot State probably gets him. And from there, the focus is just going to be most likely at safety and maybe corner.
Yeah. Well, and I did want to kind of ask one question here that Paul mentions in terms of any word on Peyton Wilson playing or sitting out of the bowl game. And that's $1 million question. And if there's one thing I know about Dave Dorn, we probably more likely will not find out until basically game time, if I had to guess. I mean, because for example, like with Bradley Chubb back in 2017, I know that maybe behind the scenes it was maybe known that Chubb was not going to play, but also too, I think that a lot of that has to go to that. I mean, he was pretty much a consensus. I mean, early first round pick, but with Peyton Wilson, I mean, I think he has, a huge upside for sure, but I don't think he's necessarily like, oh, this dude's a no doubt early first round pick guy. And so, and I know that Dorn, he loves to, do his gamesmanship thing. So I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if it's game day and then we find out that Peyton Wilson's deciding to sit out of the bowl game. That's my thoughts on it. I mean, I don't, not looking for any inside info here, for just speaking as a fan, my thoughts here, not knowing anything here. So, not setting it up in terms of,
I wouldn't be surprised if he even actually plays, just knowing the type of guy and player he is and going for a 10th win.
Yeah, the interesting thing, when we were down at the Nagurski Ward a couple of weekends ago, I didn't hear him say this, but several of the fans that we had with us said he made the comment that he was going to play. And, for me, the selfish NC State fan of me, I'd love to see Peyton play one more time. I would love to see us get that 10th win. But at the same time, man, Peyton's done enough for NC State as far as I'm concerned. Dude doesn't have to he doesn't need to win a 10th game.
He doesn't owe me nothing.
Yeah. Right. And, and so the word was that he.
Right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right there.
Yeah, exactly. And so the word was he really wanted to get or do his part to get Dave that 10th win. And that's great. I mean, and that's Peyton, man. I mean, if you guys have been around Peyton, that's just how he's built, man. And he's not built to sit out a football game if he's capable of playing. I hope, for his long-term success, I kind of hope somebody will talk him out of it. At the same time, man, it'd be fun to see Peyton play one more time.
Well, and that was my 2 cents. And Ryan, I kind of get your thoughts here. Is 2 things. First of all, I mean, I'd said that if we had lost to UNC, okay, then I would say there's almost no chance he plays in the bowl game because of the fact that of his draft stock combined with, I mean, now you're not really playing for much, but now you're playing for something with that 10th win, just like you mentioned that, Steve. So you're playing for something on top of it. I just don't really know if he's the guy that if he said to State fans, I'm playing, it'd be one thing if he said, I'm not sure yet, I'm still thinking about it. Like if he said that, then I wouldn't be surprised, but I would be honestly shocked if he's telling State fans I'm playing and then he doesn't play. Why say it? Why say you're playing? Just, and again, if he doesn't play, I'm not judging him. I'm reading in between the lines here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm sure that's why he's kind of held out, because I think he wants to be completely sure. Because I mean, the reality is he has the tape. He's been at State for a long time, so he has the film on him. All he has to do is show up to the combine, run a 4.4, and then he's going, get
that 23-mile-an-hour clock out there again.
Yeah, I mean, that's all he has to do. I mean, if he played, he may be the first guy ever say, I wish you weren't playing. Because I think we talked about it when we had Harmon sit out. I think Pratt sat out the same game. And then you were kind of like, come on, man. You're like a fringe NFL guy, but at the same time, you have to understand what they're doing. But I could see Peyton being like the first guy where I'm like, no, dude, please don't play. Because it's like you want to see him flourish in the NFL because kind of going back to the NIL stuff, I could see him being one of the guys that really gives back because he was one of the first players that got in deep with Tom with Savage Wolves. So it's like you almost want him to do well because it's kind of like an image of Savage Wolves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real quick before we bring on our next distinguished guest, him playing in the Senior Bowl, would you maybe, because that's a full contact game, would that maybe lead credence to him potentially playing in the Pop-Tarts Bowl as well? I mean, if he's gonna be playing in an All-Star game, what would you think the chances of him playing in a bowl game as well?
Again, I think it goes back. He's a competitor. I think he wants to play.
Yeah, he's a legacy guy.
Yeah, I remember talking on a live stream like 2-3 years ago with Leighton about Sam Howell. I didn't think Sam Howell was going to play, and then he still played. I mean, he's just a competitor.
Yep.
I think it was the Orange Bowl because, I mean, his whole offense basically sat out, but he still went out there and played. And that's the kind of guy that Peyton is, but the difference is he's a linebacker, not a quarterback. So he has a lot more in way of getting hurt.
Yeah.
But again, at the end of the day, it's up to the player. We can go back and forth, and ultimately it'll be his decision, and hopefully whatever he chooses ends up being the right one.
Yeah, ultimately, I don't think any NC State fan is going to be. I hate to use the word,
be disappointed.
Yeah.
I'd like to, before we jump to the guests, there's a question in here about offensive line. I want to touch on it. I want to give the big guys some discussion, some props.
Give them some love.
Offensive line, is a very divisive grouping, right? Some people really like it, don't. You get varying opinions. So me and Alex G recorded for IPS last night a film room on Zeke Correll, the newest transfer center, Notre Dame. I mean, guys, I'll tell you, the question in the chat was, can we protect Grayson next year? When you look at once the offensive line got solidified this year, right? And now you all right, McMahon goes out. McMahon was playing well at the end of the year. You bring in Correll. Correll is a very high-end player, and especially when we're talking pass protection. I mean, he really excels at pass pro. Coming from an offensive line that, listen, Notre Dame is one of those lines that is revered, right? The coaching is about as good as you can get at the collegiate level, right? I mean, he's played in big games. We broke down the All-22 last night of him playing against Ohio State and, just big contests. We even broke down the NC State game, him playing against Brandon Cleveland, CJ Clark one-on-one, and how they handled it. I actually feel really good about the offensive line, assuming everything else stays status quo. It's still early. I get it. But as we sit here tonight, I feel really, really good about that offensive line, guys. And to me, that's the floor of your offense. The offensive line and the quality of it is your floor. Your skill guys build the ceiling up, but that's your floor. And I feel really good about it right now.
And I think the thing that helps is you're going to have Grayson who knows blitzes. He knows a defense. Right. So he can see where a blitz is coming. You can shift protection accordingly. Whereas we saw in the Duke game, I mean, in other games as well, that the quarterback.
No, you can go to the Duke game. That's fine.
Yeah. They were just, a blitzer coming unblocked and he wasn't picked up, even if it wasn't from the blind side. And it's like having that experience at quarterback will be a compliment to the offensive line because he'll be able to help the offensive line kind of read the protections. Yeah.
So, Steve, I know you have to go here soon, my man. So I'm going to let you introduce our next guest here, man. Mr. Reed himself, man.
I can't get away from this dude, man.
I fuck to Steve more than my wife.
What's up, brother?
Hey, how are you, bro? You good?
Yeah, just talking some NC State football. It's been busy, huh?
Man, it's been a night, brother. It's all good stuff, man. It's a lot of fun right now. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. And so Reed, and just because I know we've met and worked together with like the drawing, the Savage Wolves drawing. So you primarily and only assist with the Savage Wolves side, am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's
cool.
I spend my time, and that keeps me busy enough.
Well, especially during this time.
Say.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's not like you guys are doing anything over there.
Yeah, right.
I think we learned something that the December portal next year, nothing can be on the calendar. It has to only be Savage Wolves.
Makes sense.
Oh, Philip and I were talking yesterday, and I completely agree with this thought that has December now, because the transfer portal, become one of the most exciting times of the year. December right now, we're just just buckle your seatbelts, and just brace for impact. Used to you're just hoping for one commit every month or two, things like that. But now, I mean, shoot, there's like, there's some days you might get 2 commits, one day, there's like, who knows, just
well,
buckle your shoes out there.
The pace is frenetic. I think one of the interesting thing is consider, it used to be, Steve, was it like July? Like June, July camp season used to be like the season for commits. Like you'd go in and you'd know what's going on. I think the crazy thing is like with the December portal, guys have such a tight window, they have to make decisions. And so what you don't have is anybody lollygagging on decisions. They're bang, bang. And which means there's a lot of conversation that has to go in because, there's a lot of educating, particularly I hate to say this, agents on how NIL works. Because there's not a certification out there for agents for NIL. And it's sad when we're having to educate agents on what they can and can't do, right? And that's the part that we need some restructuring and there needs to be some type of certification for that so that we're not babysitting agents on how to do their jobs. Right.
So that's interesting
crazy
that you bring that up because I thought they had to be. So all they have to do is just be registered with the NCAA. Is that the only rule?
Yeah. Okay. It's not like a training or something.
Wow.
In that fashion in which guys are kind of working off the same sheet of music. And in a lot of cases, there's a lot of what I call handlers who are not professional business people who are representing these athletes. And it's a friend of the family or somebody that knows somebody. And you kind of got to weed through that and explain to them like, hey guys, a lot of these guys, they've never done it before. Right. And so they're doing it for the first time and they're coming in and, they might look at somebody's projected NIL and think that's real life. And there's kind of some hard lessons being learned here on what's real and what's not. So
totally.
Reed, are you saying the On3 NIL valuation isn't legitimate? Are you? Is that what you're telling us?
I'm saying that if I could run for office and change 2 things. Number one, I'm changing is that any person over the age of 65 years old can't get paperless bills like my parents did. Okay, they can't even turn the damn computer on, much less get a paperless bill. Number 2 is that On3 NIL portal value bullshit gets taken down. Those are the 2 things I'm running on.
I love it.
Yeah, those numbers seem to be like pretty crazy. So for the average fan, you hear like the Matt rules come out and go, you 1 million to 2 million for a quarterback, and that's probably only a handful of guys, right? Like from probably the 1% top tier. Yeah.
So Steve, I know that you got to go, and so I want to ask one question. I want to get your thoughts on first, and then Reed, if you wouldn't mind jumping in kind of right after, because this is kind of a big thing right now. But Justin asked a question here. Speaking of next December, do you guys think the NCAA makes any changes with all the players that hit the portal during this period of the year? I mean, I think the stat right now is like over 1,200 players have entered the transfer portal just this month alone. Like, it's just, I don't know, man. Like I don't even know necessarily what to think about it. Like in my opinion, there's good and bad to it. Like that's the only thing I can say about it.
Can I piggyback with that question too? Because do you see a scenario where that football drives the academic year as far as like the way the bowl games and the championship, and you have the spring semester starting, early January-ish. Do you see maybe a scenario based off of that as well?
I don't personally see that. As far as the NCAA goes, like I hope they don't mess with the rules, because typically if they mess with the rules, they typically just make them worse. And it's about as bad as it could possibly be right now. So if they do anything, it's apt to only get worse. I think Reed would tell you, and I definitely would say, like, the whole system to me is a disaster. The entire way that it's set up is a disaster. And I don't know how it's sustainable in its current form long term, because what the NCAA did is they basically stuck NIL on the backs of the fans. The fans are the ones paying for this. The schools are still making all the money that they always made. And it's, your average everyday fan that's having to fund this just to be competitive. And what do you do when, if NC State goes, 3-9, instead of 9-3, what is the conversation for Savage Wolves?
We're not having this conversation right now.
You're exactly right. There would be no conversation. And so that's why I say you're one bad year away from having a horrible fundraising season. And so I just don't know that it's sustainable in the long term. I don't know what the answer is. I think it starts and it ends. And I know a lot of different people have different opinions on the transfer portal. Personally, I hate it the way it's set up right now. And I think that's what's kind of created this chaos in regards to NIL, because guys, they can leave. Now, it's been limited a little bit over what it was, but it's still a mess, man. And so, I don't know what the easy solution is to fix it.
Well, you could also add, too, there's not a set standard across the board for every state, right? Because every state kind of has their own jurisdiction and legislation based off of it. So not every state is created equal as far as the playing field.
No, you're absolutely right. And, Texas has some of the most lenient rules when it comes to NIL. And out there, they actually pair up like their version of the Wolfpack Club with their NIL collective. And they operate together because they're under a different set of rules than we play by. There was folks that had suggested to us we should have based our collective out of Texas so we could cheat. And but that's kind of the way the landscape looks.
Right. And I guess I'll end on this because I know you got to go, Steve. But that's some of the education that you guys are trying to get out there. I've watched all your guys' podcasts and streams, and I see Tom out there, and it's just about continuing to that educational process, because as you see, state doing well, we need all those resources. And so we just need to make these guys and ladies smart about the process. And we're not just, the pay to play scheme that you always heard back in the 80s. Right.
Right. And this thing is still new, man. I would say for the average fan, the last maybe 6 to 9 months, NIL has just really started to come to the forefront, to the point where people are starting to understand that it's important. And so they're trying to figure out, why is it important? And, I get DMs, text, emails constantly, people with questions. And I think as we go along, it's going to become clearer to people, exactly the role that we're playing as we go forward. I think you're going to see Coach Dorn get a lot more involved in the messaging to the fans. Obviously, what he did after the Carolina game was massive for us, and we've been playing catch up for the last 3-4 weeks. So, I think Dave will help us with the messaging, and this thing is only going to grow, man. We're on a great foundation starting 2024. Reed is on with us full time, and I'll tell you right now, man, Reed is one of and I hate saying this with him on the feed right now. He's one of the smartest dudes I've ever worked with, and I'm telling you, he can get some stuff done, man. And when
get out of here,
when he's on this thing full time, I told him, I was like, dude, I'm glad you're coming, man. And I think it's really going to level up here over the next few months.
Well, yeah. I think I was telling you, I feel like state fans are lucky to have like guys like Tom and Reed leading it, because
they don't even know.
Hey, yeah, bro, I mean, shout out. Huh? Can you give me a shout out? I mean, it's not just.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you doing?
Come on, man. Look, hey, Steve, I got kids too. They never give me a shout out, man.
The dude literally comes to my house, and every time he comes to the house, I'm by this computer working. I mean, give me something.
Hey, I help carry those boxes. I think having like a business mindset at the top kind of helps leverage you against just going after a guy, because you can go after the guy. Just because the money's there doesn't mean you can, you should use it. And I think they're doing it the right way. They're going, trying to get different events and stuff to help with NIL. And I think state fans should feel lucky that they have the guys that they do, because they have. At the end of the day, they're huge state fans. It's not like there's some third-party guy coming in here trying to raise money. At the end of the day, they're diehard fans.
Right. It comes from a place of love and passion. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think kind of like I do want to comment on the sustainability in the NCAA part, because there's a part here that drives me crazy. you've created a model in which the NCAA has tried to turn this into free agency. Like I don't think they physically tried to do that. But when you create a portal in which you no longer have to sit a year to transfer, what is the reason that a student athlete would choose to stay behind and grind at this point, right? Why would an athlete not want to go try the grass where it could be greener, right? And I think that's going to be a struggle for coaching staffs all across the country, is the retention of their own players. And I think that it worries me because I don't think it's long-term sustainable. The other thing that I'm seeing this year, it feels like guys know where they're going before they even get into the portal. And that one just drives me crazy. Is that the guys literally, it just feels like you don't have a chance. They know where they're going to visit, and they know, and it's one place, and that's where they're going. But I think until real agents get involved and you end up negotiating and working with agents who are professionalized business folks in place of working with family members, because family members, I don't look at things rationally with my kids, right? I think my kids are the greatest thing on the planet. Now, my daughters are 10 and 14, and so some days I don't always
give it a couple years.
Yeah, but the reality is like sometimes I think when you're represented by your family, you can't look at things objectively, right? You think that your student athlete is the greatest athlete to ever live, and is the next. God, I can't even say Michael Jordan because it's affiliated with the
next Hall of Famer.
Yeah, pick a Hall of Famer, and so. I think that that's interesting, and that's part of the unsustainability in the marketplace, right? So I think the goal for the collective this year is really to professionalize it as a business, because in order to have sustainability, it has to be run like a business. And, that's a fine line that Tom and myself have to talk about, is like, hey, are we running this as a business or a fan? Is this decision being made as a business or a fan? And sometimes you have to check yourself, right? Yeah. Like we want state and we want to be great, but it's about a business because it's about sustainability. But the current model from the NCAA is not sustainable. Like,
well, and real quick, Greg, before you jump in, I do want to I know, Steve, I appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you so much for your time and your support, man. All you do for NC State, man. Really do appreciate it. And thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Do me a favor, ask Ryan at least one hard question.
All right.
And Reed, if you get lonely, I'm just a phone call away, dude. I know a little bit, but just call
me. It's 57 minutes past my bedtime. I'm past lonely.
All right. Layden, thank you, brother. I appreciate you letting me come on.
Appreciate you, Steve. Thank you, man. All right, Greg, go ahead, man.
Yeah, Reed, I just wanted to ask you this because, I'm on a lot of fan pages, Facebook, Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it.
Too many.
And too many, exactly. But that's the life I live. You speak of this sustainability, right? And then you take that piece, and then you take the piece of, oh my gosh, we're a top 20 team that had 9 wins, and we're losing 18 guys to the portal, right? Oh, like the sky is falling. And so I kind of want to just throw this out there because I think I have a thought about it, and I know we were having the $25,000 payment to all the players. And again, I think that speaks to the suitability of it. Is it safe to say a lot of these guys that, I'm not saying all, but a lot of the guys that you see leaving the program were potential because they were just kind of hanging around because of that payment from the last year or so?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of a football program takes some attrition. Mm-hmm. There have to be some people that come in and they recognize the fact that they're probably not going to play. But if they went down to a G5 school, they have a really good shot at playing. Or not even a G5, just, in a lower level ACC school, right? They could have a real chance to play. And when it comes down to it, every one of these athletes wants to play. Every one of them wants to get to the league. Mm-hmm. And I think that the previous model of where every student athlete gets a base of $25,000, here's the way I look at it. If I was in college and I got $2,000 a month and I got to go to every P5 D1 party that every student athlete gets to go to, and I could wear the jersey, are you leaving? Because I'm not leaving, bro.
Nope.
Like that's
I'm not paying for any beers.
free drinks. That's a pretty good gig. So I think what you're seeing is a lot of guys that are going to go get playtime in other places, particularly when they leave state. They're leaving with bodies, physical bodies that are ready to play. You look at what Thunder does in 1 to 2 years with guys coming out of high school, and you can't tell me G5 schools aren't just lining up for these guys to come play.
Right. They're salivating,
Absolutely.
I'm sure.
Yep. But it takes not having that bottom end that gets compensated in order to keep some of that attrition that you have to have as a program.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Agreed.
Reed, I have a question for you. I've heard you talk about the people reaching out to NC State, right? NC State's in a good position as a program.
Absolutely.
So how is the communication between Savage Wolves and the staff, right? Because there has to be some layer of communication, right? Because they have needs. They say, yeah, we need a backup nose tackle. We need this and that. So how is the communication in the back and forth between the two organizations?
I think they're just really supportive of what we're doing and the effort we're putting in. And it's funny because I think it boils down to the fact that if you're going to do this, you have to know something about football. You don't have to know the X's and O's, but you have to understand something about roster management, right? You have to know where the holes are. And then essentially it's a matter of, the agents and families reaching out and saying, hey, we liked what we saw at NC State. We saw the X's and O's. We saw what the school can offer for student athletes. What's the supplemental part? And that's really where it kind of comes in. So, our discussions with the staff is not what player do we like? Who do you want? Like, ooh, I like Grayson McCall over
Bob Smith.
Yeah, like those aren't the conversations. Like we're not coaches. We don't do X's and O's. We just look at, hey, where are the holes in the roster that need to be filled, and we do our best to fill them. And so there is some communication, but it's not. I don't think it's nearly the depth that people would think it is.
Not to get too far into the sausage making of this, but what would do you when they say hey, we definitely need a quarterback? Do you guys just kind of looking at your your numbers, your financials, and say, okay, we can get a guy with X this to X that? Is that kind of do you guys slot money for positions, or is just you have a pot and you just kind of pull from it where you see that best works for the scenario that you're looking at?
I think that's where common sense has to come in, right? I mean, you have a budget that we work within. And so it's interesting, the coaching staff may value a player and say, oh man, we really love that dude, right? And internal in the building, they're all in love with him. And for us, it's more, okay, we have a budget. We know that CJ Clark left and we need a nose, right? Because you can't go in the season with one nose. So we're smart enough to know we need a nose. Now the conversation is okay, well, we think we can probably attract this person. This one's not really interested. This one's going to be too much money. You get an idea, and the agents are talking to you all the time. Hey, they're getting info. Hey, I've got a quarterback. He's looking for $1 million. Brother, this is NC State. If you got a quarterback for $1 million, it's cool. I hope he has a great career. Yeah, like that doesn't make sense. So what you're going to see is we will always gravitate towards those hand in the dirt blue collar guys, right? And Grayson McCall is a perfect example of the hand in the dirt blue collar guy, paid his dues at smaller schools, had a hell of a career at smaller schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did you guys see his touchdown to interception ratio?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we've been talking about it.
We talked about it.
I mean, it blew me away, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's the right kind of guy, right? And so I believe in our coaching staff. So we think that if we can get players at that level, they're going to improve it as a sum. So the one thing that coaches know is what players make. So, for instance, every coach knows what Peyton Wilson's deal was, right? And so they're going to try and recruit guys at that level because they know that we can afford that level. And so pretty much anybody that they're bringing in for a visit, they already know it's within the level and the budget in which we kind of work within.
Interesting. Cool. Well, Reed, I first of all, I appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you so much for giving this light, man. This is awesome info. And
I would love to have another conversation on this because I have tons of questions.
Oh, totally. And
I'm happy to line it up, man. I got opinions.
We love
out the wazoo.
All right, Reed, we'll be in touch, and we'll do a separate recording with you, man. Would love to do it.
Y'all take care, guys. Thanks
Appreciate
for
you,
having
Reed.
Thanks,
you, guys.
All right, y'all. So, obviously, we're talking about, quarterback valuation, and the one last topic, which I, wanted to kind of bring up, unless, anybody else has any.
You still owe Ryan a hard question.
I do.
It has to be on the sticky note you sent me.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So Ryan, what is the biggest need right now for NC State, and why? No, but somebody asked.
That's a fair question.
That's I can answer. All right, go for it.
Yeah.
What's the biggest hole right now, Ryan?
I think right now is locking down your corner position.
Yeah.
I think you have, obviously they said nose tackle, and yes, you're going to have to get a second nose tackle. Linebackers, you're okay because you got some freshman guys that are going to come up. Safety, you're going to be okay, but you're still going to need some depth pieces. But the real question mark is, what are you doing with the corners? Because Battle can come back, White can come back. You'll have Cisse next year, but it's like, are you keeping Battle or are you keeping White? There's been rumors out there. Say what?
It's not and.
No, it's obviously both.
It could be.
There have been rumors out there of keeping both, and to me, I think it'd be in State's best interest if they can, because that's less guys you got to recruit.
Tell me where I need to send the check.
Yeah, I mean, and then at that point, you just got to get depth pieces. But then you're bringing in guys like Coley and Cooley from Maryland that are going to help. They're going to be on a visit this weekend. And then you got Johnson from Duke, who they're going to try to get into. But it's just trying to get in those depth pieces. But if it's just say in a world where you lose both Battle and White, you have no corners. You have Cisse, and that's it. To me, that's going to be your biggest, what if you lose those guys.
That's a great, one of the things that's kind of shocked me. I'm very curious, Aiden White, I'm sure he's probably reaching out to the NFL, get a grade and all that kind of stuff. Man, when I look at some of these corner lists, right, the top corners, I feel like, man, they're criminally underrating Aiden White. I mean, it is just wild.
It's because no one threw to him.
Yeah.
And I think the issue is a lot now on social media is what can I see, not what's happening behind the scenes, right? Everyone wants the information in front of them. So I can look at a stat sheet and say, oh, Aiden White only has 3, 4, 5 picks, whatever it was. But you're not seeing the game film of why he only has 20 or so tackles. Like when he played Tez Walker, dude had 2 catches for like 8 yards or something like that. He had the tip to Peyton Wilson for the pick. And it's like that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but it shows up on film. And I think that's why a lot of those guys get very underrated at corner, because it's like if you're not watching film, then you just don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Man, I go back to the interception he had against Miami. Right. Mm-hmm. Great interception, shows up on the stat sheet. But, man, when you watch the film and how he baited Van Dyke into that throw, I mean, that's high-level stuff, guys. Like, it is really impressive.
Yeah, he knew the depth of the end zone, and he knew how much space he could work with. And he knew if he gave just a tiny window to Van Dyke, he was going to force it. But he knew he was still in a position to make a play.
Yeah, he jumped it beautifully. All right, so we got QB1, Mr. Danford. Mr. Danford, who are you looking at for QB2? Like what are your thoughts? Like what are we looking for in a QB2 at this point?
Well, and Philip, before I let you real quick, I want to say, because a lot of people are saying, okay, Cedric Bailey's going to be your QB2. And I'm sitting here saying, all right, so you're telling me that all this money and all these guys are bringing in and going all in on this year, and you're going to rely on Grayson McCall, and then God forbid, knocking on wood, like there's no tomorrow over here. God forbid he goes down. You're gonna say it's okay. We still got Cedric, true freshman Cedric Bailey,
or Lex Thomas, who hasn't really.
No, you can't do that. You crazy? Like were you blind and deaf during 2022? Like, come on, man. So anyway, go ahead, Philip.
I mean, listen, tough spot for me. No inside info here. I just to me, it's got to be a multi-year player, right? This is a guy that you're bringing in, convincing to say, hey, Grayson is QB1 this year, but you're going to learn behind him and you're going to have a true shot at the starting spot next year. You will compete, right? So, I mean, it's got to be a multi-year guy. So that will weed out some of, the candidates potentially. I think you're likely to get a small school kid coming up. I mean, I could be wrong. I think that's kind of the guy you convince to say, learn behind McCall and be that next guy. I'm not sure if it's a guy that's already at a P5 and he's kind of been sitting behind somebody and he's waiting. I'm not sure you're going to convince him to wait another year.
To
I
start,
think it's got to be a guy coming up, right? So that's the two things in my head. I don't know. Like it's a question mark. You had to get QB1 behind you. We did that today. Check that off. But this is going to be one of the things we look at probably. Now, I don't know if they have anybody they've been talking to, but I would imagine in kind of the next wave, or is it even in that spring where it opens up in the spring again? Maybe some guys weren't where they wanted to be in the spring depth chart following practice there. I'm not sure, but I do think there's a couple of attributes right there. One, the multi-year guy is the most important part to me.
So when you say that, I'm sorry, whoever wanted to jump in can go for it. I just had to follow on. Yeah. So is a Cam Fancher that kind of guy from Marshall?
I think Fancher's going to want to start his spot.
Yeah.
He's already had the taste of, and that's just my thought. Now,
that's
I
fair,
think
though.
if you got him, ideal. Like, I mean, I think he's a guy who could really build upon what he's already done at Marshall.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Tore us up this year.
I just don't think he wants to be a backup for you.
Yeah.
That's just my thought.
And I agree with that, but that was a name you saw kind of floating around out there. Yeah. And my thoughts are the same too. And I agree with your thoughts on a P5 quarterback. The Oregon kid just didn't make any sense to bring him in.
Thompson.
Yeah, Thompson. He was always going to be a QB1 option, not a QB2.
Yeah.
But Michael, you had something there?
No, I was just saying Fancher played really well against us, like against our defense. So
yeah. I was going to say, to Philip's point, it's like now the biggest question mark you have was QB1. All right, now we got QB1, but the good part about it is now I can wait till that second wave, right? I can wait till I
can be patient with the next guy.
Yeah. And you're going to have to press issue, because the reality is, like Layton said, you're going to have to get another guy who can play. And that's nothing to set Bailey, but for one, you have to have 4 roster quarterbacks.
You don't say.
Right.
Fans don't agree with you.
Yeah. And what's also lost in December is you have signing day next Wednesday, right? So you still have to get Bailey signed. I mean, he's not at state yet. So, but in a perfect world, you would have freshman Sed Bailey, redshirt freshman Lex Thomas, a walk-on turn scholarship Ethan Rhodes. So it's like, what happens if McCall goes down? He's had injury problems. It's not to say that he's going to get hurt, but you're going to have to get that second guy. But at least now with McCall, you kind of have an idea of, hey, I can spend X amount on this second guy, and I have X amount of time. Like, you're not going to get guys based off of your second quarterback is. So it's like, now the hard part's out of the way. So let's just zone in on a guy who really wants it. And you can wait until that second wave, because after that, when that second wave comes, guys are going to have like a week and a half, because it closes January 3rd. And at that point, you probably can get guys at a discounted price, and which is terrible to say, but I mean, it's just the reality of NIL now. Guys are going to be desperate, and if State can offer more NIL than a Boston College or a Wake Forest, they would choose State over that, because they're like, okay, if I'm going to sit, I'd rather go here. It's going to pay me 10, 15, 20,
Get
whatever.
Money.
More.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's clear as day that's going to be one of the biggest other focuses, but also too at running back as well. Like that's a spot where you need to bring in at least one guy, to pair up with Kendrick Raphael. Even though you feel great about Jonathan Paylor, even though I've seen that guy play in person, that dude is going to light it up. But looking at there, but one question which I want to ask, because I think this is the biggest thing which I saw today, and I want to ask your thoughts, Philip, because that highlight list, that highlight film I got that I posted on Twitter was basically from YouTube, was put together by somebody on YouTube. And so I didn't put together those. So it's not like I put together, like I found these highlights and was like, man, like, dude, did you see him throw to that guy who the wide receiver has no defender within 10 yards to him? Like, wow, what a throw, dude. But but also too, like, so first of all, that thing, but also too, combined with, well, he's coming from Sun Belt. Like, okay, yeah, he threw 88 touchdowns and 14 interceptions against Sun Belt opponents. Like, like how do we know that he's going to be successful in the Power Five? I mean, what would your response or your rebuttal be to somebody who came to you with those comments?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he can only play what's on the schedule. He has no say in it. So I'm just not worried about it from that perspective. I mean, we've seen guys come up. You look at whether it's Castellanos, showing up at BC and playing, showing out this year. We've seen guys come up. His wide receiver is going to South Carolina. Are we asking the same question about the wide receiver that just committed from Coastal to there? I mean, they play really good ball at these levels. Like, that's one thing I think if folks kind of watch, what happens between the lines. Really innovative schemes at the G5 level, really good players. I mean, who would have ever thought a guy like Jared Verse for Florida State was at Albany? And he comes up and he dominates the ACC, and he's going to be an early round pick in the draft. They have quality players. I mean, I think that's a disservice to that level of football. Those guys are good. Those guys are smart. I'm not worried about it. I'm really not.
Yeah, and I think you've talked about it, Philip. The way these cycles work now, where you're not putting as much of an emphasis on prep. You're kind of looking out there to see what's there. Sometimes, and I remember you've talked about it. It's about sometimes guys being under-evaluated or in other cases over-evaluated, and it's just this is where it worked out for him at that moment. That's not a knock on the player. It's you should take. I guess applaud somebody for wanting to step up in competition, right? And I don't look at it as, like this guy was a group of 5 player. He's gonna be trash. Like why didn't he get P5 offers coming out of college? And sometimes these guys do get P5 offers. They just look at the situation, especially the quarterback situation. There's only one ball to go around, and so why would you want to go sit on the bench for 2 to 3 years? And then potentially see another quarterback come in on top of you, where you see like at Ohio State's, you go to a place where you can go play and develop your skills.
Yeah, and to me, like I said, we'll do a big film on McCall. If you look at a traits-based evaluation, he has, I believe, what you need to be a solid to very, very good ACC level quarterback. And so, I mean, I think that's what we're going on, right? I'm looking at footwork and against cover 2, is he throwing the corner route as, he should, or reading the corner and hitting the guy under, I'm looking at those things. I'm looking at the traits. I'm not paying attention to the guy he's playing against. And when you do it from that level, I feel great about the acquisition.
Yeah, and there's plenty of quarterbacks that have played at lower levels. I mean, the one that always, for me, jumps off the page is Steve McNair. He played at Alcorn State and had a great pro career. So just because of where you start doesn't mean that you're not capable of playing at a higher competition level.
Absolutely. Yep. So as we kind of wrap this thing up here, just wanted to kind of, first of all, just kind of get your thoughts, Ryan. I mean, I know we haven't even talked about the bowl game, at all. And I mean, like we forgot that, oh wait, Brandon Armstrong's our starting quarterback right now. Like, not Grayson McCall.
We got one more game.
Are you sure? Like, it's not Grayson McCall starting.
60 more minutes.
Like looking at this bowl game here, I mean, what's your gut feeling right now? Like, do you because I mean, right now, I mean, I've seen some articles saying like, no, Kansas State should be favored by 9. There's Kansas State's football's putting up all these hype films about their freshman quarterback, and like I don't know,
Sunshine 2.0, whatever.
Sunshine 2.0, like, and I can read from your eyes that I can already say what you're thinking, but tell me what you're thinking.
I mean, the reality is I don't know. Like, we haven't won a bowl game in so long. Like, it's like you don't know.
Yeah.
And it sucks to say, but I was down there for the last 2 Gator Bowls, so excited, and then we know how that went. And it's like, I just want to win a bowl game, man. And I think having the Tony Gibson defense is always going to help you.
Yeah.
Especially going against a team that is losing players like Kansas State. But on the same side, I mean, you don't know for State who's going to sit out. You really don't know. I mean, you could lose McMahon, and then look how the offensive line looked at the beginning of the year.
Who plays center then?
Exactly, because Cooper's gone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of question marks.
Who is it?
Ryland Van, right?
Yeah.
At that point, he's playing.
Probably.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you see him charting with 2J on the sideline, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's like, so there's so many question marks leading up to the game that I can't tell you about the game until it's over.
Yeah.
Because I mean, at this point, especially with the way bowl season is now, you just don't know what you're going to get, what team you're going to get. You know, State's been on a roll. Are they going to continue that roll? Who's going to sit out? Who's going to play? So it's a whole different dynamic, man. But of course, I hope so.
Yeah. And also too, Ryan Andy says Ryan knows at the last two as well. Hashtag brutal.
What's the last one? The Sun Bowl, right?
The last one was Sun Bowl. Yeah. Last win was Sun Bowl 2017. Yep. Yeah. It's been a bit. Yeah, crazy. We didn't even think that, like, we didn't even know how to spell pandemic, and here we are. So Philip, and then kind of ask you the same thing as well in terms of like, do you think that bowl season has really, like, I don't think it's kind of changed overnight, but I feel like each year that it goes on, like with the transfer portal now being the way it is, like bowl season is almost kind of like it's kind of like a glorified scrimmage. Like I think that, like, everything you're seeing, like anything you see during the regular season, just throw out the window. You have no clue because you don't know who's going to play, who's going to be coaching, what they're going to run, how they're going to react. Like, no clue, because there's also no situation like it where, like, all right, guys, we're going to go play an away game, but before that, we're going to go to all these shows, we're going to go to amusement parks, we're going to go do all these fun things. Like, there's nothing like it preparation wise. It's so that combined with all these people sitting out, whoever coaches being gone, might not be gone. Like, just toss it up and let's see what happens.
I think, to me, bowl season changed. I don't remember what year it was, but I'm pretty sure it was pre-portal. Jalen Smith for Notre Dame. When Jalen Smith was playing in, was it the Fiesta Bowl, or what it was, and tore his knee, and you're talking about a top 10 pick, tore his knee in the bowl game. Obviously, I think the Cowboys picked him, third round, something like that.
Third or fourth,
millions, in that initial contract. To me, that was the impetus to really start, all right, we got to make business decisions now, right? And then I think the next year, the tight end from Michigan, I think, tore his ACL, Jake Butt or something like that. And it's like, man, when those happen, things started to change. And now the portal comes into play, I want to say after all of that, and it's just thrown things into chaos. So it is. Ryan's exactly right. I mean, God bless anybody who's trying to bet on these games, because it is hard to figure out. I mean, I was looking, I want to say, is it The Athletic or one of the sites is doing a really good job of keeping up with, like, who's opted out and who's moved. And it's wild when you see how long the lists are for some of these games. I mean, it looks to me like neither Georgia or Florida State even wants to play that game. So, I mean.
Yeah, it's really tough for fans like myself. Like, when I go and spend $250 a ticket to go to the game, and that's just buying it straight from Ticketmaster. That's not a third party ticket sale, right? So when fans are dropping that kind of coin, you want to go see the best that your team has to offer. And so it's like, do I drive 12 hours, spend $250 on tickets plus hotels, and now I gotta take my kid to SeaWorld because he needs to go see an orca whale. But like it really makes it difficult. Like, it just doesn't feel the same, right? Like I know the players get up because they're competitive, but I don't know we as fans can get as excited when you start seeing all these opt-outs.
Yeah. I see a lot in like groups and stuff. People are like, I have a different mindset, but I'm going to say what they say. It's like, they're like, I don't know if I want to go to the bowl game because with all these players opting out, I don't know who's going to play. And like, for me, I'm like, it also helps that State's going for their 10th win. But it's like, these dudes have been grinding all year. I was like, the least I can do is if I can reasonably do it, I'm going to go and support.
Yes, sir. That's my next up. Yep, I'm with you, brother.
And I'm like, I don't care who sits out. Like, I want to support the guys, but to your point, Greg, it's like, especially with Ticketmaster, they don't make things cheap. And it's a drive.
It was like $300 in ticket fees.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I think as fans, it helps when you and State's been pushing it too. You're going for your 10th win, right? So this hasn't been done in a very long time.
You need a narrative.
Yeah, and I think State's really trying to push that narrative because it's a good one. And here's the thing: you're going for your 10th win in Florida. You're not going for it in California. So you have a little bit more grads in Florida. So hopefully you have a better show out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess growing up as a kid, the one that stuck with me was when we went to the Champs Bowl We had to leave like Christmas Day because it was going to snow here. And right then and there, like we ended up winning the game, beat West Virginia. I was like, when I get older and I have the ability, I'm going to try to go to every bowl game I can on the East Coast, because it's like, I don't know, I just enjoy it. You get to see it in the team in a different environment, and it's like they've worked for this to get to this point.
It's a reward, right?
Yeah. And like we said, this one's a little different for State because they're going for that 10th win, but it's almost like if you're not in the playoff, it's not like reflective of your season, but it's not like a preview at next season either, because with the transfer portal, the team's going to look totally different. So it's like just kind of its own thing now.
Yeah, I don't think that bowl season momentum is a thing anymore. Am I wrong in kind of assuming that?
Right. Yeah.
Well, if you get a 10th win, I think it depends on.
Yeah,
but at that point though, you're transfer like you're saying, Michael. You have we're gonna have 35 new guys probably next year when it's all said and done.
But here's the thing. The flip side of that, it may not be momentum with the players or the transfer portal or anything. With NIL now, it's momentum for the fans.
It's money, right? Yeah. It's the donations coming in.
Because fans are going to see, and there's a lot of people out there, they're like, okay, I can give money, but what's my ROI? Like, what is my return on investment?
Yeah.
So when State fans see, oh, I'm giving money to Savage Wolves, I'm doing these events, and we're getting 10 wins out of it, which we haven't done in years. Okay, I'm getting something out of it. Like, it's actually working. I'm just not giving my money to a lost cause. And you saw that after the UNC game. Doran calls out Savage Wolves and Pack of Wolves, which is also a big shout out because they do a ton with student athletes too.
For sure.
They had so many people donate. Like, it was insane. Peyton Wilson, there was 138 for a raffle ticket. They raised like $30,000 in 2 days for that.
Wow.
And
which, by the way, it's not too late to buy those. You have until like 3:00 tomorrow, I think, right?
Yeah, on Thursday. So I think from a fan standpoint, it's important to see because, I can go and talk to some random person on the street and say, hey, we won the Pop-Tarts ball. They're like, hey, I don't care. But from a fan standpoint, it's a big win because you're like, it's like, we're doing something. We're actually winning.
I want a Pop-Tarts champions t-shirt.
Yeah, that would be cool, actually.
For $10 on the side of the street. You wash it one time, the whole decal comes off.
Yeah.
Well, and Preacher Man summarizes it perfectly right here: 10 wins, pride, and Pop-Tarts. I mean, that's what you're playing for right there.
In that order.
That's all you need.
In that order, exactly. And then Tracy points out last year was our first bowl game. I am sorry, and it was super disappointing experience. I'm hoping for better this year. I mean, I will say if
it's going to be better weather.
Well, dude, I'm telling you, man. Like, thank God the Mayo's Bowl's in Charlotte. Like, if it was in Miami, and I flew all the way down there for that crap, I'm talking the on the field and the pregame game in general.
Yeah,
it was awful, absolutely terrible. And I'm telling you, I really did consider over the last 2 days when Duke's Mayo was posting all these, cutesy little videos, things like that, with them like getting their quarter zips and all that, turning Tuffy Talk into a Duke's Mayo troll account. Cause like, it's like, all right, maybe if y'all focus a little bit less on buying your quarter zips and more time, making plans for pep rallies and get-togethers and things like that, and bring in bands and stuff like that. Like, maybe people would have a better time, and instead of focusing on, hey, let's get this guy to eat just mayo out of a jar on a humongous screen. Like, I'm good. I'm good. I don't need that. Like, it's all good.
I think some of that too is like it's you have that whole Charlotte Sports Commission thing kind of doing theirs, and it's just, I think this is gonna be much more better organized. Just kind of like the Pop-Tarts Bowl website is very nice and clean. It has all kinds of things to see and do, and so some of that's just the luck of the draw of the bowl game you end up with. Like if we were to end up at the Fenway Bowl, I'm not sure how exciting that would be for fan experience. I don't know.
And I want to give a shout out to Tracy lady that asked. She's a huge State fan.
Yeah, she's awesome.
I met her doing one of the sideline things with Savage Wolves, and she's a big part of State.
Well, she gave a shout out to Reed earlier, saying he was a great host as well when she was doing it as well. And
and I hope to have Tracy as a new member of Hungry Like the Wolfpack tailgating next year. So she's officially invited to the tailgate. So we're gonna step up her game day experience.
That's big.
Yeah.
And last thing I'll say about the Duke's Mayo Bowl is, can we say that it maybe makes sense that the Mayo Bowl was ran just as well as the Carolina Panthers were this year? I mean, not to say that. I mean, maybe those things are aligned a little bit in terms of how badly both those things are ran. What is it?
And the Hornets.
Yes, and the Hornets.
Half the team was locked up.
Yeah, well, and LaMelo Ball can't stay healthy. But anyway,
all right, we're getting off the rails here.
I know, right? But anyway, y'all. Well, first of all, thank you so much for joining in here, y'all. And this is, I think, hopefully this has been very insightful for sure. I know we didn't get to a lot of comments here today, as obviously we were just, we were just digging deep into it here, y'all. But hope everybody at least had a great time for sure. And again, we'll definitely continue to do more stuff with Ryan and Philip. As again, Ryan, Philip, we appreciate you both so much, man. And you guys,
Stephen Reed as well,
and Stephen Reed for sure. But I mean, Ryan, Philip, we got a group chat. I mean, that's how you know what I mean. Like, I'm not gonna bother getting on a group chat with Steve. Like, listen, like, I any info which he has, I know I'd have to pay to find it. You know what I mean? So
look, I forgot what game it was. I just remember panning over to my left and just Greg just staring at me and waving at me because he texted me in the group chat. He was like, "Hey, man, look over here." I look over and just staring at me.
Is that your seats permanently, or do you move around a lot?
Yeah, I think we're going to be one section over.
Gotcha.
It's just basically, whatever we get or do.
Yeah, for sure. I was just like, damn, there's Ryan. And my wife's like, who is Ryan? I'm like, don't worry about it. He's somebody.
Which I gotta say, so let me know if I'm in the minority real quick, and then we'll wrap this up. If you had your choice on any spot in Carter Finley Stadium to watch a football game, would you not pick the lower part, home side, upper level? Like, in my opinion, I feel like that's the best seat in the house. I've watched a game from every single piece of Carter Finley Stadium. In my opinion, it doesn't get better than lower part of upper level.
Like first couple rows of the upper level.
Couple rows, upper level.
Yeah, it'd have to be the first row.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Because, I mean, for one, I guess more so the summertime, you don't have the sun on you.
True.
Like, it was behind us every time. And most of the time, it blocks the wind coming in. Whereas if you're on the east side, you have the sun almost every game. It is always windy over there. And at least you got the student section. But, I mean, it's just not the same. I think the families sit over there, kind of behind the visitors. So, you don't have crazy fans. But, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I would say the upper level. Oh, go ahead, Philip.
No, I was going to say, I mean, we sit in 29. So we're kind of somewhat in that area. And, frankly, I like sitting high. I like looking down. I like being able to see what's happening. We have some good football talk, right? We enjoy the game. We talk about, what's happening. And that's just, I'm a nerd for that stuff. And so that's where I want to be. I want that high vantage point to really get a sense for, how things are playing out.
Yeah.
If my only complaint about being in the lower level is you're standing the whole dang game. Like I spend $500 a year to stand. Like, I don't even know why I have chair backs, to be honest with you. I'm in them like during commercial breaks.
Yeah, pretty much it. Yeah, that makes about sense. All right, y'all, let's wrap this up. Thank you so much for everybody for joining in here, y'all. Really do appreciate it. And again, we will have a ton more content coming out here soon. So make sure you do not miss out on that. Do us a big favor. Hit that free subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. And if you enjoyed this conversation, do us a favor. Hit that like button. And also make sure you give us a follow, Tuffy Talk Now, on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And huge shout out again to Ryan and Philip. Make sure to go give both those guys a follow on Twitter if you haven't already. And again, huge thank you as well to Steve Williams and Reed from Steve Williams from Inside Pack Sports / Savage Wolves, and Reed with Savage Wolves. So just make sure to go and check them all out. Make sure again, get involved, y'all. Get involved, whether that's with Savage Wolves, Pack of Wolves, whatever that may be.
Inside Pack Sports has theirs too.
That's right. So let's keep this momentum going, y'all. Let's keep this momentum going on all fronts, y'all. And let's continue to make this thing great into an ACC championship 2024. ACC champions. Let's do it. Let's make it happen, y'all. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see y'all soon, and go Pack, y'all.
Let's go.